Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Watchman. We're going to title this lesson Connected to the Stars. We humans are deeply connected to the stars that we see in our night sky every day. Um, many of us in the Western culture have been taught, due to your Christian beliefs, that you shouldn't believe in really anything to do with astronomy or maybe astrology and that sort of thing. And although maybe you shouldn't use astrology in order to predict events and those sorts of things, the stars, which are definitely a part of astronomy, um, and the planets in the sky and the moon above and our very sun, which is also a star, deeply connected to you and I, in many different ways. Very large stars, after forming iron at their core, uh, are the ones that actually produce supernova. So, very big, hot, large, massive stars that form iron at their core are responsible for the all the elements of the periodic table of elements, other than hydrogen and helium. Regular stars produce helium when two hydrogen atoms are fused together, which is basically the force, the fire, the burning um, energy that we see in stars. It's fusion. Um, Now, how large stars form supernova is by forming iron at their core. Large stars form iron at their core, and when a large star forms iron at their core, iron's a very heavy metal. And when fusion takes place to the extent atoms are fusing on top of each other, more and more heavier elements, iron is then formed at the core of these very large stars. When iron is formed at the core of these very large stars, these stars then at that point, within a split second, form all the other elements that you see on the periodic table of elements. Every element that you see, okay, on that table. This star, then the power and the force of gravity is stronger at that point than the force of fusion that is always in balance, keeping the stars from blowing apart and from sinking together and imploding. At this point, though, gravity is outmuscles fusion, so to speak. The star then collapses on itself and then expels its contents and all these elements that are created by fusion in the split second that we see on the periodic table of elements, and delivers seeds throughout the universe for everything that you see around us. This table, and more so, interestingly, my body and your body. So we are truly connected to the stars. We are truly children of the stars, and these stars do make up, uh, or give way and give birth to the elements that create our bodies. So the Bible, interestingly enough, also teaches us that Daniel, one of the scripture's most noted prophets, was the head of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon's court of astronomers. So Daniel was an astronomer and did indeed study the stars. The three wise men that we're all taught about, or many of us rather, taught about in church, Sunday school, Bible study, things like that, nativity scenes, if you will. These three wise men actually were not referred to as wise men at all, but these three figures that we see at the birth of Jesus Christ that come bearing gifts for the Christ child are actually referred to as magi, or in other words, magicians. Um, these magi, interestingly enough, actually read in the stars, if you'll think back. Many of you that were taught this, these magi actually read in the stars where Jesus would be born, that he would be born, okay, at this time period, and followed a star to the destination in which they would find Christ's birthplace. So the stars themselves actually led the Magi to Jesus' birthplace. Is It is interesting to note how the sun, obviously affects our day-to-day biology with our circadian rhythm, meaning our rhythm in sync with the sun, day-night rhythm, so to speak. But also the moon affects us drastically. People can see from the moon that, or from the effects of the moon, that people's behaviors change around new moons and around full moons. It's kind of easy to note that. ER statistics vary and change as a result of the moon, new moons, and full moons. Crime statistics can change as well. And, also something that hits really, really close to home is that we as a species are directly tied to the cycle of the moon. Meaning, how are we directly tied to the cycle of the moon? We are directly tied to the cycle of the moon because the females in our species, our women, our life givers, so to speak, our bearers of life in our species, their menstrual cycle is directly connected to and tied to the 28-day cycle of the moon. It is not tied to a 30-day cycle or 31-day, given month of a calendar, like some people would think. But no, actually this is directly tied to the cycle of the moon. So in many ways we owe the rhythm of our conceptions and births to the moon cycle. So in that way we are directly, all of us are tied to the moon. It's also interesting that the zodiac seems to be carefully designed to make our species different, depending on what stars you're born under. It's often been noted by many people that study these sorts of things, that musicians, a lot of times winter babies are excellent musicians. They make great artists and musicians. Expression of soul and talent, and these sorts of things are seen a lot of times through winter babies, where in turn a lot of times it's the summer babies that make really strong leaders of conquest and cause and things like that. So we seem to be almost placed at a balance by the fact that we're born in under different stars, different zodiac signs, almost like a balance, and we seem to be directly tied to that balance. Also, I always find it interesting the studies that refer to Judas Iscariot, which you'll note from the scriptures was the disciple who sold Jesus out, so to speak. He identifies Judas Iscariot, and the scripture identifies Jesus by a kiss. He tells the soldiers that, to whom the one I will kiss, is the Christ. And it's interesting, Judas is said to be a Scorpio, and a scorpion stinger actually looks like a pair of lips, a set of lips when you look at it. And its sting could be said as a kiss of death, just like Judas gave Jesus Christ the kiss of death. And many also note that Jesus Christ himself is a Leo. That his sign would have been a Leo, which sign is the lion. Go figure. um, that's another lesson for another day, and a little bit more research needs to be done there. But that is a pretty wild truth, if in fact so. And also, interestingly enough, the blueprint of microscopic matter seems to affect the cosmos as well. Mostly, we find dead space between the nucleus of an atom, where the protons and neutrons reside, if you will, and the electrons of an atom, which are way, way away from the nucleus of an atom, respective to its size. Okay? That is the same way that the sun and the planets orbit. The planets orbit the sun. That is a very similar type of design and situation that we see on the atomic level. So at the atomic level, we find that it seems to affect the cosmos and the structure of that as well. It can be also said, as above, so below, and as within, so without. So the scriptures also tell us that what happens on earth will affect what happens in the heavens, and what happens in the heavens affects what happens on the earth. The scripture also tells us what will be loosed on earth will be loosed in heaven, what would be bound on earth will be bound in heaven as well. So we are deeply connected to the stars in more of a way than we truly understand. And it's also interesting to note that the Hebrew language refers to the sky above that you see, and the stars in space and the cosmos as heaven. If you was to look all the collection of things that you see above, it would be referred to in the Hebrew language as heaven. So that's all for today. Bless you, folks. This is Watchman. Until next time.